अधिकारी हैं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं।
So there you heard the Prime Minister addressing the Naval Innovation and Indigenization Organization seminar called Swavlamban this year, and wherein he underscored that, the key pillar of Atmanirbhar Bharat is, attaining self-reliance, especially in the defense sector, and for which he, spoke at length about various schemes and the way to go forward if we want to achieve self-reliance, Atmanirbharta, particularly in the defense sector. Going back to our extensive coverage about the presidential election this year, Manoj?
जी बिल्कुल, राष्ट्रपति चुनाव 2022 के निर्वाचन अधिकारी और राज्यसभा के महासचिव पीसी मोदी ने थोड़ी देर पहले राष्ट्रपति चुनाव के लिए मतदान की प्रक्रिया पूरी होने के बाद मीडिया को जानकारी देते हुए क्या कहा, आइए सुनते हैं।
The polling for the 16th presidential election 2022, which commenced at 10 a.m. today, the 18th of July 2022, in committee room number 63, Parliament House, New Delhi, and at designated places in the capitals of all states, including NCT of Delhi and Union Territory of Puducherry, closed at 5 p.m. The poll was conducted in a peaceful and an orderly manner in all the designated places all over the country. Out of the 736 electors, comprising 727 members of parliament and 9 members of legislative assemblies who were permitted by the Election Commission of India to vote at Parliament House, New Delhi, 730 electors comprising 721 members of parliament and 9 members of legislative assemblies cast their votes before closure of the poll, that is 5 p.m. The total elector turnout at Parliament House, New Delhi was accordingly 99.18%. A detailed report of the polling in Parliament House, New Delhi will be compiled shortly and uploaded on the Rajya Sabha website www.rajyasabha.nic.in under the link Presidential Elections 2022. The assistant returning officers of various states will start arriving with the polled sealed ballot boxes to Parliament House, New Delhi by road and by air from today evening itself. The first ballot box is expected to arrive in Parliament House around 10 p.m. today. All necessary security arrangements for safe transit of ballot boxes from the airport to Parliament House have been made. The Parliament Security Service is coordinating actively with the Delhi Police, airport authorities, CRPF, etc. to ensure smooth and secure transport of ballot boxes. The counting of votes will take place in room number 63, first floor, Parliament House, on Thursday, the 21st of July 2022 from 11 a.m. onwards. Committee room number 63, Parliament House, and its immediate precincts have been declared as sanitized and silent zone, and only the counting officers and other officials of the Rajya Sabha Secretariat deployed for duty to assist me during counting, the candidates and one authorized representative of each candidate, the observers appointed by the Election Commission of India, and PIB accredited media persons holding authority letters issued by the Election Commission of India will be allowed entry inside the counting hall. Media persons will be allowed entry into the counting hall in small manageable groups for short duration, escorted and guided by the officers of the Rajya Sabha Secretariat deployed for the purpose. Media persons are requested to scrupulously adhere to the instructions issued by the Election Commission of India with regard to media coverage of counting. I hope all of you have already received the said instructions. The instructions have also been affixed on the notice boards for information of all and have also been uploaded on the Rajya Sabha website aforementioned. The result of counting will be announced immediately after the counting of votes is over. The result will also be uploaded on the Rajya Sabha website under the link Presidential Election 2022.
So there you heard the Secretary General of Rajya Sabha, who's the Chief Returning Officer for the Presidential Election 2022, Mr. P.C. Modi, addressing the media and informing that presidential poll has been conducted peacefully at the Parliament House and also the various legislative assemblies across states. And the total turnout at Parliament House has been 99.18%. In fact, the ballot boxes have begun to arrive. They'll begin to arrive by late this evening, and the counting of votes will take place on the 21st of July. That's also when we will get you an extensive coverage through the day about the counting procedures and how it takes place in the presidential elections, how the ballot boxes arrive at the Parliament House, and the Chief Returning Officer along with his team are then involved in this procedure. But going back to our discussion, and we were earlier on talking about how it's been really significant this time around with the contest between Draupadi Murmu and Yashwant Sinha, and the former belonging to the tribal community, and if elected, in fact the stage is all set with the kind of support that she's been getting from not just the NDA camp but across different parties of the opposition camp as well. So stage is all set for her to become the first tribal president of the country. Mr. Ketkar, it's the message not just about social inclusion and about empowerment, but through this the party has also begun to rewrite its image. The BJP has always been known as the party of upper caste, but two successive, selections. 2017, it was Mr. Ramnath Kovind, who, hailed from a Dalit community, and now this time in 2022, the first tribal, president. And if she wins, it goes to the credit of the BJP. So a sort of a turnaround that the party actually wants to do for its own image building as well?
No, I think the party has made the turnaround 2014 itself. If you see last Lok Sabha, a couple of Lok Sabha elections, and in fact all assembly elections also, and if you see in terms of the reserve constituencies, BJP has the highest strike rate. So that was narrative at one point, and today also some opposition parties try to do that. But I think with Modi becoming at the helm of affairs as far as party is concerned, I think that by and large has changed. But the messaging that you do through these selections of candidate, and building a sort of consensus around them. I remember one case of Draupadi Murmu, because there has been a talk about whether, of course, constitutional scheme of things, executive actual powers rest with the Prime Minister and his cabinet. So, President is, but when it comes to discretion, there are a lot of powers. I know one case when Raghuvar Das was Chief Minister, there was one tribal land bill, and she is the one who decided to return it to the cabinet. Now, considering that she coming from the same party but still holding a constitutional post, using that discretion, she decided to do that. It doesn't mean, and that's why I'm specifically making this point, because in opposition there are many people who are making this argument in favor of. One can always say, Shekhar Iyer was saying, what is Yashwant Sinha's contribution? Since 2013 especially, that his only contribution is consistently anti-Modi. And the kind of words that he have used in last 8-9 years, especially on social media platforms, are literally make us think whether he was a bureaucrat, he was a finance minister a couple of times, he had got everything possible in one party. His son got elected and then became state minister of finance. But and this started happening from 2013, since BJP executive took place in Goa. So if that is the only qualification to be a opposition's presidential candidate, then it really put question mark, and that is one of the reasons you don't see much of a that may not be the same with perhaps vice presidential election, because all parties who are going with Draupadi Murmu for presidential election may not go for a vice presidential election. But in this case, I think it is uneven race.
Absolutely. So we'll continue with the discussion, and we'll come to Aditi ji and also Mr. Iyer. You know, we'll take this point forward on whether these allegations and this kind of political discourse is needed, especially when we're talking about election to the highest office of the country. But in the meanwhile, let's go across to our correspondent Pawan, who's joining us from inside Parliament House.
जी, पवन, क्या जानकारी है? अभी पीसी मोदी जी की हमने प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस को सुना, उन्होंने बताया, आपके पास क्या जानकारी है? आज दिन भर जो मतदान हुआ है, क्या कुछ जानकारी आपके पास है?
मनोज जी, जहाँ तक अभी, क्योंकि रिटर्निंग ऑफिसर हैं एसजी जो राज्यसभा हैं पीसी मोदी जी, हम सभी लोगों ने उनकी पीसी को सुना, पर वो सब्जेक्ट टू करेक्शन है। अभी राज्यसभा की वेबसाइट पे जो है डिटेल जो है वो अपलोड की जाएगी। जहाँ तक उनकी जानकारी है, जैसा आपने भी बताया कि 99.18% जो है वो मतदान हुआ है, उसमें से 721 सांसदों ने अपना मत डाला है। उसमें 9 एमएलए भी हैं जिन्होंने कि यहाँ पे मतदान किया। कुल मिला के 730 जो जनप्रतिनिधि हैं उन्होंने अपना मतदान यहाँ पे किया है, पर ये सब्जेक्ट टू करेक्शन है। जानकारी ये भी मिली है कि बीजेपी की तरफ से जो सनी देओल हैं वो शायद उन्होंने वोटिंग नहीं करी है। बाकी भी जानकारी सामने आएंगी। तो आज ये अभी सब्जेक्ट टू करेक्शन है, इसलिए इसमें अभी क्योंकि वेबसाइट पे अपलोड होगा तो हमें और ज़्यादा जानकारी मिल पाएगी। पर अगर मैं बात करूँ तो देश के 16वें जो राष्ट्रपति हैं उसके चुनाव आज संपन्न हो गया। सुबह 10 बजे से मतदान हुआ और अभी 5 बजे तक चला, और पूरे यहाँ पार्लियामेंट के साथ ही पूरे देश की विधानसभाओं में भी जो है वो पूरा मतदान हुआ है। जैसा पीसी मोदी जी ने बताया कि आज रात 10 बजे से जो है वो बैलेट बॉक्सेज जो हैं अलग अलग विधानसभाओं से वो पार्लियामेंट में पहुंचना शुरू हो जाएगा, और 21 तारीख को 11 बजे सुबह जो है वो काउंटिंग शुरू होगी, और उस दिन देश को नया राष्ट्रपति मिल जाएगा।
मतलब उसमें what's also been commendable, you know, about over the elections over the last few years is that with due permission from the Election Commission, Manoj, it's also been facilitated. Those members of Parliament who are there in their respective constituencies in their states can actually go and cast their votes in their respective state assemblies, and the MLAs who happen to be in the national capital can go inside, you know, the Parliament House. And this has been done to ensure that there is maximum attendance when it comes to electing the office of the president, and so that every member takes it also seriously. It's an indirect election. But Aditi ji, let's go across to you and, you know, continue with the discussion that we were talking about, the larger messaging. When it comes to electing the president of the India, even though it's an indirect election, it's just the elected representatives of people who are electing the president, but it's not that the people of the country are not watching. So this messaging that we have been discussing is of great significance. When it comes to, you know, a historic moment, a momentous, moments like these, when a president from the tribal community is being welcomed and is being, you know, hailed across the country, should there be consensus? Should the opposition parties keep aside their, you know, political compulsions, their egos, and join hands together to send out the larger message for the larger good of the country?
Well, just because there's an election for a particular post doesn't mean that there is no consensus, and that there are differing views. And it's true that Yashwant Sinha does represent that group of people who does not agree with everything that the government is doing. But that's not the point. The point is not that whether he is opposed to Narendra Modi, he is opposed to the BJP, he supports the Trinamool Congress. That's not the point. The point is that, first of all, Draupadi Murmu has conducted herself with great dignity. She has not even spoken about the candidate who is opposing her. And she believes, I think what that tells me is that she believes that it's okay to have an election, but finally it's the people who have been elected as representatives of the Legislative Council, Assembly or Parliament who will have their say. So I don't think there's any need to force consensus. There will always be people who will not support a party in power.
Okay,
so and the CJI himself has said that there must be an opposition. So I think it's very important to have an opposition.
जी बिल्कुल टीना जी, वैसे हर बार बात होती है सर्वसम्मति से राष्ट्रपति पद का जो चुनाव है वो सर्वसम्मति से हो जाए, लेकिन अधिकांश बार देखने में यही आया है कि चुनाव देश में हुए हैं। शेखर अय्यर जी, मैं आपसे समझना चाहता हूं इस बात को कि संयुक्त विपक्ष ने यशवंत सिन्हा जी को अपना उम्मीदवार बनाया, लेकिन द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी का नाम सामने आने के बाद जो कांग्रेस के साथ सरकार भी मिलकर चला रहे हैं वो दल भी कांग्रेस का साथ छोड़ गए। कई जगह कांग्रेस का जो गठबंधन है वो बिखरता हुआ नजर आया, विपक्ष में एक बड़ी फूट पड़ती हुई नजर आई। कहां कोऑर्डिनेशन का अभाव है विपक्ष में?
मनोज जी, शुरू से आप देखेंगे विपक्ष के पास कोई ना रणनीति थी ना कोई कैंडिडेट था, और जो लोग पहले इनिशिएटिव लिए थे, जैसे ममता बनर्जी तृणमूल कांग्रेस के अध्यक्षा और पश्चिम बंगाल के मुख्यमंत्री, अब फाइनली ऐसा हुआ कि ममता जी ने भी यशवंत सिन्हा को कह दिया भाई आपको बंगाल आने की जरूरत है, मैं संभाल लूंगा, और उनकी तरफ से कोई ऐसा कोई स्टेटमेंट नहीं है या पूरा सपोर्ट यशवंत सिन्हा के लिए है, बल्कि उन्होंने छोड़ दिया अपने एमएलएस को, भाई आप तय कर लीजिए जैसे करना करो। और आज केवल हमने देखा एक स्टेटमेंट, जो कलकत्ता के जो मेयर हैं उन्होंने एक बयान दिया, नहीं हमने सब इनको दिया है। देखिए दिक्कत ये है क्योंकि पहली बार एक ट्राइबल प्रेसिडेंट की बात हो रही है, ये इसका असर ज्यादा पड़ा बंगाल में। जैसे मैंने पहले बताया कि बंगाल के जो दक्षिण बंगाल के जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैं, आपके मिदिनीपुर, आपके पुरुलिया, बाकी जगह भी ऐसे हैं जगह जहाँ पे लोग बहुत खुश हैं, इसीलिए उनके एमएलएस, तृणमूल के एमएलएस भी नहीं चाहते इस पे कोई इतने हम स्ट्रांगली द्रौपदी मुर्मू के खिलाफ कुछ हम स्टैंड भी ले, इसलिए ममता ने अपने छोड़ दिया कि जिसको जैसी वोट करना है करने दो। तो देखिए ये तो बड़ा स्पष्ट है। दूसरी बात आप झारखंड में देख लीजिए, झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा, जो झारखंड मुक्ति मोर्चा पूरा आदिवासी के लिए एकदम एक कमिटेड पार्टी है, उनको भी कोई सवाल ही नहीं है वो यशवंत सिन्हा को सपोर्ट करे, जब यशवंत सिन्हा झारखंड की है, मतलब हजारीबाग को बिलोंग करते हैं
जी।
तो देखिए इसलिए मैंने कहा, देखिए इस चुनाव यशवंत सिन्हा की पर्सनालिटी या यशवंत सिन्हा की कैंडिडेचर को लेकर नहीं है, सवाल है कि हिस्ट्री बन रहा है। ठीक है, यशवंत जी ने बहुत हिम्मत दिखाई, एक चुनाव जिस चुनाव में उनको पता था ये केवल सिंबॉलिक है और कोई जीतने की तो उम्मीद ज़्यादा नहीं थी, फिर भी उन्होंने चुनाव लड़ा, ठीक है। लेकिन उससे पहले क्या हुआ, पहले ममता ने तो इनिशिएटिव लेकर, देखिए वो इनिशिएटिव कैसा इनिशिएटिव था, वो राष्ट्रपति चुनाव के लिए कोई कैंडिडेट तय करने के लिए नहीं था, ऑपोजिशन पार्टी के बीच में जो दौड़ लगी हुई थी, भाई अगले 2024 के पहले कौन सबसे सक्रिय विपक्ष नेता है जो अब अगले मेरे फ्यूचर में एक प्राइम मिनिस्टर मटेरियल भी है, उस चक्कर में केसीआर भी अपना इनिशिएटिव ले रहे थे, तेलंगाना के मुख्यमंत्री, ममता जी ने भी अपनी ली। और हमने क्या देखा कि ममता ने पहले शरद पवार को अप्रोच किया, शरद पवार तब भी मना कर दिया था, फिर भी उनकी एक मीटिंग हुई दिल्ली में, वही बात उन्होंने दोबारा रखा, और शरद पवार तो कह दे कि मेरा आगे एक्टिव लाइफ है और इस समय मैं एनसीपी का नेतृत्व मेरे पास है, मुझे आगे कुछ करना है। उसके बाद क्योंकि उसी समय में महाराष्ट्र में जो पॉलिटिकल क्राइसिस शुरू हो गई थी, जो शिवसेना के अंदर क्राइसिस जो हुई, जो फाइनली एक वहाँ पे सरकार बदल गई, तो उनका ये था। फिर फारूक अब्दुल्ला आए, भाई फारूक अब्दुल्ला का नाम भी ये किया, उन्होंने भी मना किया। और फिर आया गांधी जी की जो ग्रैंडसन है गोपाल कृष्ण गांधी, जो पहले वाइस प्रेसिडेंट चुनाव लड़ चुके, वो भी तैयार नहीं थे कि भाई सिंबॉलिक फाइट बहुत हो गया मुझे और सिंबॉलिक फाइट नहीं लड़ना है। तो इसका मतलब केवल क्योंकि तो बात आएगी भाई कम से कम वेट कर लेते, क्योंकि ममता का भी एक बड़ा बयान आया कि अगर हमें पहले पता होता द्रौपदी मुर्मू कैंडिडेट है तो हो सकता है हमने कैंडिडेट ना देते
जी। जी देखिए शेखर जी और भी पहलू समझने की कोशिश करूंगा, लेकिन अंतर आत्मा की आवाज पर वोट, इसको लेकर पत्र भी लिखा यशवंत सिन्हा जी ने, तमाम सांसदों को लिखा है, तमाम नेताओं को पत्र लिखा है। अंतर आत्मा की आवाज, सर्वसम्मति, ये ऐसे शब्द हैं जो लगभग हर चुनाव में लगभग प्रयोग किए जाते हैं। कोई असर नजर आया इसका कहीं?
कुछ जगह पे तो आया, हालांकि उनके विपक्ष में गया वो लेकिन कुछ जगह पे तो आया, मतलब देयर हैव बीन वोट्स। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि हमको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स में और डेमोक्रेसी में ये एक्सेप्ट करना चाहिए कि किसी ना किसी मुद्दे पर मतभेद होगा, और मतभेद होगा तो उसका चुनाव भी होगा। यहां पे मुझे सिर्फ ये लगता है कि एक इसमें हमको उस पद की डिग्निटी, जैसे आज एक चर्चा चलाने का प्रयास हुआ
जी
कि इन्होंने कहा प्रेस से बात की, इन्होंने कहा एड्रेस किया, एड्रेस उन्होंने अपने जो वोटर्स थे उनको किया, जो इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज था उनको किया। यशवंत सिन्हा मीडिया स्पेस चाहते थे क्योंकि उनके लिए वो जरूरी था, द्रौपदी मुर्मू के लिए जरूरी नहीं है। दैट शोज व्हाट इज योर माइंडसेट।
जी
तो मुझे लगता है कि ये आप टोटल, और आपने जो प्रश्न पूछा था शेखर जी को, मुझे लगता है कि बेसिक प्रॉब्लम वहीं पे आके रुकता है अपोजिशन का। देखिए, उन्होंने जैसे कहा कि ममता बनर्जी, केसीआर और उद्धव ठाकरे 3 लोग थे जिन्होंने इसमें सबसे पहले इनिशिएटिव लिया था। अंत में आते आते अकेले केसीआर ही स्ट्रांग प्रोपोनेंट रह गए अपोजिशन, जॉइंट अपोजिशन कैंडिडेट के। उद्धव ठाकरे को तो पूरी बाजी पलट गई। ममता बनर्जी कहती तो रही वो वैसे टीएमसी के वाइस प्रेसिडेंट रहे इसलिए, लेकिन कोई क्लियर उस तरीके से वॉसिफरसली उन्होंने कुछ उनके लिए ये किया ऐसा नहीं है। ये इसका मेन रीजन ये है कि हर वन अपमैनशिप में मेन इशू ये है कि 2024 का जब लोकसभा का चुनाव होगा तो अपोजिशन की लीडरशिप कहां जाएगी, किसके हाथ में वो बैटन होगा।
So, you know, amid all this political arithmetic, what has emerged, Aditi ji, is the fact that regional parties play a crucial role, not just in, you know, the elections to the president that we have seen. In fact, they have called the shots this time around. Even for the way ahead, for the 2024 general election. So if the opposition camp has to remain intact, the Congress party has to give the due space to these parties who are performing well at their regional levels, and, you know, who have the charisma, who have the caliber to, you know, take the lead and actually keep the opposition unity intact. So what we have seen, this kind of fissure, especially after announcing the joint opposition candidate, it's a little embarrassing situation. So when you've announced the candidate and then you don't rally behind your, even though there is no whip for the presidential election, but there is, you know, a discipline that party leaders will vote for the particular party line. So going forth, if the eye is on the 2024 elections, what should be the opposition, you know, strategy be to keep its flock together?
Well, first of all, I think I have no disagreement with you at all that regional parties must have space and the Congress must yield space to them in order to keep itself, its own existence alive. That's number one. Number two, there is always space for different opinions, and I think that's something that we all must realize.
Absolutely.
So you can't say that you know, just because a person belongs to a particular community or belongs to a particular tribe or belongs to a particular gender, he or everyone else must yield in her favor or his favor. Secondly, I think it's very important that people remember, Prafulji made a reference to this, that this is the same Draupadi Murmu who went against a BJP government in Jharkhand and the BJP's then understanding of tribal rights and land laws, right? She returned the bill to a BJP chief minister. So let's see if she displays the same sense of resolve when she becomes president. I mean, I would reserve judgment on that.
Let's also not take away from the fact that, you know, what we've been seeing is leaders of the opposition party, in fact, calling her a statue, a rubber stamp, you know, indicating that even when she becomes the president. So things like these for, you know, a candidate who has risen, you know, from the ranks.
Yeah, that
she's
is completely
worked it
uncalled
up.
for.
Absolutely. And she's worked it up. She comes from this.
It's completely uncalled for, and that is, those are remarks that nobody in India must support.
Absolutely. And her credentials are not that she just belongs to one community. I mean, if you look at the background, she has a strong political background. She's been a teacher. She's also had an academic background to say. And then she's lately served as the governor, and where she's, you know, we've all shared the commendable work that she has done there in terms of also taking a stance for her own community. So, Manoj, it looks like, you know, the numbers we've been discussing, it's completely been a non-event. It's been quite symbolic to say, but that's the beauty of democracy, that it's a contest wherein the person who knows is not winning but still putting up a very, very strong front, and on the other side the other candidate who has a good, you know, support of not just the NDA but also members of the opposition rank. So it looks like on the 21st the results will be in her favor, but of course, as due procedure calls, the counting will begin at 11 a.m. on the 21st of July, and that's when officially it will be announced as to who becomes the 15th president of India, which is the largest democracy of the world.
जी बिल्कुल, जिस तरह से आज तस्वीर उभर के सामने आई है, अलग अलग राज्यों में मतदान का जो प्रतिशत रहा है, जो दिल्ली में संसद भवन में बढ़ चढ़कर सांसद सदस्यों ने भाग लिया है, इसके कई सियासी मायने भी हैं। राष्ट्रपति चुनाव के, हर चुनाव के अपने संदेश होते हैं, अपने मायने होते हैं, लिहाजा इस राष्ट्रपति चुनाव के भी अपने कुछ मायने हैं। 21 तारीख को जब परिणाम सामने आएंगे तब तस्वीर और स्पष्ट होगी राजनीतिक रूप से, संदेशों की दृष्टि से। लेकिन यही लोकतंत्र की खूबी है कि अलग अलग विचारों के बावजूद चुनाव होता है और लोकतंत्र में हमारे लिए चुनाव एक उत्सव की तरह है और उत्सव में सबकी भागीदारी होती है। वो भागीदारी देखने को भी मिली। आप तीनों ने आज हमारे इस कार्यक्रम में भाग लिया, चर्चा की, आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। तो आज हमारे इस कार्यक्रम में इतना ही। मुझे दीजिए आज्ञा टीना जी के साथ। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू वेरी मच।